Yeah, I'm not going to build that Yuriko deck because I just feel like it would be disrespectful to Ulamog and Kozilek.
Because you're not actually planning on using them?
Just to have them in there, never to cast them. You know, I never intend on casting them, and that just feels disrespectful.
You would much rather cheat them into play for a greatly discounted cost.
Sure, that's better. But, you know, with the Yuriko deck, I'm not even planning on putting them on the field ever.
Right.
And that just feels wrong.
Well, I guess you gotta find your own way, Nate.
Yep. It's Commander Time! Welcome to Commander Time! We are yet another podcast about the Magic the Gathering format known as Commander. I am Nate Burgess.
I'm Dean Goody.
Patrick is not here right now. He's probably asleep because it's a school night. And
Sleepy Patrick.
It's late.
Yep.
What were we talking about? We're talking about Dean's build.
Yep.
For Xantcha Sleeper Agent, because he made a build for it. We might talk about more builds for Xantcha later, but today we'll talk about Dean's build. And what do you call it?
I'm calling it Spiky Pillows. That's like 30% accurate to what the deck does.
Spiky Pillows. And we'll find out what that means. But first, is there any but first?
Planeswalkers are printed as commanders in C18. Does that mean that the Rules Committee is considering adding all of them as legal commanders?
No.
Probably
No,
not.
it does not.
But Brawl has it, and they're back.
I'm predicting no.
I would agree to your thought process, besides just Sheldon is an old man and says, "Get off my lawn."
I think it probably would have happened already, if it was going to happen.
I can see that. I think that if it was going to happen, since we know the Rules Committee collaborated with Wizards on these particular decks, I think Wizards would not have put this commander can be your, or this Planeswalker can be your commander on these cards, and the Rules Committee would have announced it with the release of the decks.
Yeah. I'm not sure how in-depth the collaboration was. You know, they might have just been able to play the precons against each other and call that collaboration. I don't know what the situation was.
It sounded like they actually, changed some of the decks around because of the input that the RC gave. That was the impression I got from Gavin's tweet.
Okay. I think it would have happened already.
Yeah, probably. Do we have a patron this week, Nate?
Oh, we do. And it's Chris Flynn. That's our patron shout out. Chris Flynn. Shout out.
You've been shouted.
What's your top card? Oh, so this time I picked the category of what the top card is of Commander 2018. I'm picking the category Top Planeswalker. Dean, tell me, what's your favorite Planeswalker of Commander 2018?
Well, my top new card was Windgrace's Judgment, and I think my top Planeswalker from this set will be Lord Windgrace himself.
Yeah?
Yeah. He's the closest thing we have to a Jund Lands Matter commander, and he's pretty decent. So he's a 5-mana Planeswalker, 2 black-red-green. It comes down with 5 loyalty. His +2 ability reads discard a card, then draw a card. If a land card is discarded this way, draw an additional card. So you could cycle through your deck with that. His -3 says return up to 2 target land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's really pretty good, I think. They don't come into play tapped. They just come back into play. Right. And his -11 ultimate, which I am not a huge fan of. I think it's a little bit disparate from his first 2 abilities. But his -11 ability is destroy up to 6 target non-land permanents and then create 6 2/2 green cat warrior creature tokens with Forest Walk. Okay. Which is not my favorite ability. But there you have it. I love his first 2 abilities. I think they're excellent.
Yeah, getting the 2 lands back for -3, and that's in addition to any land you play that turn. That's
right.
Pretty good.
It's kind of like an Azusa Lost but Seeking.
Yeah, out of your graveyard. And let's see, is +2 discard a card, then draw a card.
Yeah, so it's rummaging.
And if you discarded a land card, you draw 2 cards.
And that's better rummaging if you discard the land.
Right. So you're going to play this in a deck with a lot of lands.
Yeah, I think I'm running 38, maybe 40 in my deck.
Okay. Yeah, I would say 40 at least.
Yep. Well, if you do 40, more than 40, you're going to have a hard time fitting in all the fun toys that you want to play.
Well, maybe some of those toys are lands. Ah,
Aha!
land toys.
So what about you? What is your favorite Planeswalker from C18?
I like the Swamp Girl. Aminatu the Fate Shifter. White, blue, black. It's cheap. It's already cheap to cast. I don't have to pay much. Legendary Planeswalker. Comes in with 3 loyalty. +1 ability, draw a card. Then put a card from your hand on top of your library. And I think there's a Sphinx coming up that we'll talk about in a later episode that would really like that ability. The -1 is exile another target permanent you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control. There are a lot of enter the battlefield tribal kind of decks, and this Planeswalker could work with a lot of those creatures, or permanents. These are just target permanents. Could be anything. And the ultimate, I don't really care about. It's -6, choose left or right. You take all the non-land permanents and you twirl them around the table.
Yeah, it sounds about right. So for at least 2 of the commander decks, neither of us care for their ultimate abilities, but their first 2 abilities are pretty sweet.
Yeah, I like it.
With that second ability, do you think you can go ultimate with the Saheeli Cat combo, but just not with Saheeli?
So what happens with Felidar? You're talking about the Felidar...
Yeah, Felidar Guardian, is it? Sovereign? I think it's
Guardian or Sovereign. The Guardian, Felidar Guardian, is a cat beast for 3 and a white. It's a 1/4. Who cares? When it enters the battlefield, you may exile another target permanent you control, such as this Planeswalker, and get all the loyalty back, and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control.
You could infinitely flicker Aminatu and the Guardian back and forth, and then if you had something in play that dinged all of your opponents whenever a creature comes into play or something like that. Oh, I know what you could do. Super cheesy, but you could run in Altar of the Brood, and you just mill your opponents out.
That's cool.
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of a linear combo, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it, but someone could.
Someone could. If you're listening and you like Altar of the Brood, you could build that deck.
Yeah, you could do it, but I'm not gonna.
Let us know how that goes for you.
The main topic. Dean, what are you gonna build with Xantcha Sleeper Agent?
So I think I am. I think I'm actually going to paper this deck out because I'm really enjoying how it looks. I haven't play tested yet. I haven't had the chance to do that. We've been down to Patrick, so Xantcha's not very good against one player. But let me just read off Xantcha real quick for anybody who doesn't know yet. Xantcha is a 5/5 legendary creature minion for 1 black-red, and as Xantcha Sleeper Agent enters the battlefield, an opponent of your choice gains control of it.
Ooh.
Xantcha attacks each combat if able and can't attack its owner or a planeswalker its owner controls. And Xantcha has an ability for 3 generic mana. Xantcha's controller loses 2 life and you draw a card. Any player may activate this ability.
So anyone who wants to draw a card can pay mana and draw a card. And whoever's controlling Xantcha loses some life.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, really. It's sort of everything that I would like.
Yeah, it's a group hug.
Yeah, in group hug, in group slug ish.
In group hug colors.
Yeah. yes. The best group hug colors. I probably took something of a page out of my Magus deck when I built this, which is also a red-black group hug slug kind of a deck.
Your enchantments are all different, though.
Many of them are. I am still running, I think, like Repercussion and stuff like that, but I'm running Auras, which is a different take, and we'll get to that in a minute here. So Xantcha has this weird ability where anybody can activate her 3 generic mana ability to draw a card and ding the controller. So I'm running Heartstone in here, which reduces the cost of all creatures' activated abilities by 1 generic mana.
I like that.
for the Vorthoses in the crowd, you may be pleased to know, or maybe you already know, that Heartstone is tied to Xantcha anyway. Heartstone is Xantcha's heart, I believe, which went over to Karn. Now listen, my lore is not super in-depth, but I am pretty sure that Xantcha and Karn were friends, and the Heartstone is Xantcha's heart.
Okay. So, well, more on that. When it says she's a minion, what does that mean?
You're asking me lore-wise? I'm not 100% sure about that. I think it's... Let's see, so... Yeah, so Xantcha is from Dominaria, which is where the Cabal are. She would be a Phyrexian minion, though, I think. I am not 100% sure, Nate. You are asking the wrong Vorthos. My lore game is kind of weak.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the only other minion that I know, the only other legendary minion that I know is Braid's Cobble minion. And she's banned. So.
Okay.
Alright, so... I'm running a couple of artifacts. Heartstone is one of the coolest ones, just for those two reasons: the lore reason and the ability to reduce her cost for everyone. And I'm running a Crown of Doom in here, so I'm running some. Oh, I'm not calling it spiky pillows. I'm calling it hot potatoes. But whatever.
Hot potatoes.
Hot potatoes, because I'm running stuff like Coveted Jewel and Crown of Doom, things that you give your opponents that they have to pass around the table. So I've got Crown of Doom in here, which is an artifact that says whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And you can pay 2 to give that crown to another player.
Okay.
And Coveted Jewel is a card that it's basically a better Gilded Lotus. It costs 6, it taps for 3 mana. When it comes into play, you draw 3 cards. But whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls attack you and you don't block them, they steal the jewel and draw 3 cards. So, stuff like that.
You like that one?
I'm not sure yet. I like it in this deck, though, because I'm also running stuff like No Mercy and Dread, which says whenever a creature deals damage to you, destroy it.
Okay. So you're passing things around. There's a Contested War Zone. I saw that one.
Yep. I'm running Contested War Zone. That's a land that interacts well with the hot potato theme and also with Xantcha. It taps for colorless, or you can pay 1 and tap it, and attacking creatures get +1/+0 until end of turn. You can activate that on your opponent's turns as well. And then whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, that creature's controller gains control of the war zone.
Okay.
So there's just a couple of cards like that in here.
Still on that topic, you have a couple of Monarch cards.
I do. Just a couple. Just a splash. I would probably run more if I could. The 2 that I'm running are Marquesas Decree, which discourages people from attacking you. When it's an enchantment for 3 and a black. When it comes into play, you become the Monarch, and then whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses a life. And I'm running Throne of the High City, which is a land you can just pay for, sack it, and you become the Monarch.
I would probably use Custody Lich. I like that one.
So, I like Custody Lich very much, and I wanted to put it in here, but there's a very good reason I didn't run it. Can you guess what it might be?
Well, do you get to pick what creature is sacrificed when the Monarch thing does?
You do not. You do not.
Ah, yeah. And you don't want them to sacrifice Xantcha.
Yeah, Xantcha does not have a clause on her that says she can't be sacrificed.
And I think it's because they just ran out of room.
Probably. She has a very full text box. If you decide to run Xantcha and you bring her out, you probably do not want to give her to the black player, because they are most likely to have some kind of a sacrifice effect in their deck.
Right.
Just a meta call there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't want Xantcha to be sacrificed. You have a lot of instants in here to protect Xantcha during combat.
I do. So these won't protect against the sacrifice effects, but I am running stuff like Abnormal Endurance and Undying Evil. So these are cards that will keep Xantcha around if there's an unfavorable combat situation. You know, if the person who has Xantcha is like, well, I'll just attack that person who has a Terastodon, with Xantcha only and get rid of her. Abnormal Endurance is an instant from M19 for 1 and a black. Target creature gets +2/+0, and when it dies, it comes back into play tapped under its owner's control. So this is also something that you should know about Xantcha. So Abnormal Endurance says it comes back into play under its owner's control, which would mean you. Right. However, Xantcha's ability, as Xantcha enters the battlefield, an opponent of your choice gains control of it. So that ability overrides the comes back into play under your control ability, at least as far as the judge chat was concerned. Okay. So unless the judges are wrong, Xantcha sticks around.
Under an opponent's control.
Under an opponent's control.
But you could change opponents. You
could, exactly, yes. So that's one nice thing about it, is you could say, well, you've had her long enough, maybe I'll just give Xantcha to the Terastodon player. So then I'm running a few other fun enchantments. I've got stuff in here like Battle Strain. Whenever a creature blocks, Battle Strain dings the controller.
Right. And Heat of Battle and Carnage Gladiator do the same kind of thing.
Yep, exactly. Bedlam says creatures just can't block, so that's pretty good for keeping Xantcha protected. And then I've got a few things like Curse of Bloodletting and Bitter Feud, so you can make 2 opponents be worse enemies, which I just think is fun.
Doing double damage to each other.
Yeah, it's doubled, or it's doubled. And then we sort of get into the really unique kind of special sauce for this deck. Now, I don't know if this is going to be along the lines that like a standard Xantcha build will be. Maybe it is. But the thing that I found that I thought was pretty hilarious for this deck is cards like Binding Agony.
You got Binding Agony, Ragged Veins, Spiteful Shadows, and Treacherous Link. I had those grouped together for some reason.
Let's see what they all do. So, Treacherous Link is the best of the bunch, and I'll read it. It's an aura for 1 and a black. Enchant creature. Redirect to... so that's old wording. Let's read the updated oracle here.
All damage that would be dealt to enchanted creature is dealt to its controller instead.
Right. So you put that on Xantcha, she swings out at the guy with the Terastodon. Terastodon blocks, and the controller of Xantcha takes all of the Terastodon damage, which would be 9.
Okay.
So that's pretty good, I think. The other ones along the in this category don't do quite as much damage, and they don't protect Xantcha.
Right. It's not instead, it's in addition.
Right, exactly. So Binding Agony says for each 1 damage dealt to enchanted creature, Binding Agony deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. So Xantcha still takes the damage, and then the controller also takes the damage in that case. Yeah, so these are all pretty similar cards. They do a thing. When Xantcha takes damage, the damage goes somewhere else, or she takes it and then also the controller takes it. So it's just pretty nice that way. One really nice way to capitalize on that kind of effect is Repercussion. 1 red, whenever a creature is dealt damage, Repercussion deals that much damage to that creature's controller. So you double the damage that is dealt to Xantcha to the controller.
Yeah. I use that in Ashling the Pilgrim.
Yeah, that's a good place for it. Yeah, so that's pretty much that kind of stuff.
Let's see. I'm seeing Lust for War and Seizures.
Lust for War and Seizure, I think, are both very similar cards to that. Lust for War says... So Lust for War is a red version of this. 2 and a red for an enchant creature aura. Whenever enchanted creature becomes tapped, Lust for War deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. And then the enchanted creature attacks each turn if able, which is a little bit redundant with Xantcha because she already has that text. Seizures is also an aura with enchant creature for 1 and a black. Whenever enchanted creature becomes tapped, Seizures deals 3 damage to that creature's controller unless that player pays 3 generic mana.
Ouch.
So if they want to not take the damage, they'll just have a slower turn there with the 3 mana getting eaten up by Seizures.
There's one more in this kind of category, is Festering Wound.
Yeah, Festering Wound is a little bit slower, but the payoff could be pretty high. So, 1 and a black for an aura, enchant creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put an infection counter on Festering Wound, and then at the beginning of the upkeep of enchanted creature's controller, Festering Wound deals X damage to that player, where X is the number of infection counters on Festering Wound.
Okay.
Yeah,
So Xantcha doesn't take any damage from that. It's just the player that controls Xantcha.
correct.
Cool.
Under the category of keeping Xantcha alive, I've got a new card here from Battle Bond that I think is hilarious. I'm not seeing it in this deck list, but it is in my most recent iteration of the deck. Thrilling Encore is a black instant for 4 and a black. Put onto the battlefield under your control all creature cards in all graveyards that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So if someone board wipes, you cast this, you get all the creatures back except for Xantcha. Xantcha goes to someone else, and then, Xantcha still has to attack, and she can't attack you, and you've got all the blockers, so everyone else is sort of left wide open.
Aha.
It's pretty nice. Take everything, and then give Xantcha to the player to your left, and she will have pseudo haste, because she'll have, she won't have summoning sickness by the time she can attack.
Right. You got a few auras in here that just basically make Xantcha more buff or give her evasion.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. We've got stuff like Dust Corona.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is right out of Planar Chaos, which is one of my favorite sets. It's an enchant creature for red. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and can't be blocked by creatures with flying. So giving Xantcha that evasion is kind of nice, just because she can't be blocked by that Terastodon or something like that that's gonna get rid of her. I've got Fists of the Demigod, enchanted creature. As long as it's black, it gets +1/+1 and has Wither. As long as it's red, it gets +1/+1 and it has First Strike. So if you throw this on Xantcha, she becomes a 7/7 with Wither and First Strike. It just seems pretty good. Pretty strong deterrent from blocking, and then makes her a pretty nasty beater. I've got Frenzied Rage, right out of Dominaria, for 1 and a red. Enchanted creature gets +2/+1 and has Menace, making her harder to block. And Giant Spectacle gets +2/+1 and has Menace. So same exact card, pretty much.
All right, and these last two were my favorite.
Sure. So I've got a couple of cards that really don't see much play, I don't think.
That might be why they're my favorite.
Yeah, you do like the obscure cards. And so do I. Destructive Urge is out of one of the Urza blocks. It's an aura for a creature. 1 red. Whenever enchanted creature successfully deals combat damage to a player, that player sacrifices a land, and it has some fantastic art. I've always liked the art on this. It's a zoom up on a dragon's face with this gleaming eye, and it's got some great flavor text too. Red Sky at Night, Dragon's Delight. I just love everything about this card. It's really cool. Another great card in here that's a little bit unusual is Pretender's Claim from Masks block. 1 and a black, enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature becomes blocked, tap all lands defending player controls.
Yeah. So you attack the blue guy. Well, I guess it's not up to you who gets attacked, but
right. And that's kind of some of the fun of it too, is like you're putting all this stuff on Xantcha, but you're giving all the control of it to somebody else. Like, here, do something really, really, really bad, but do it to somebody else.
It's like getting your kid ready for Little League and you send them out.
Yeah, except for instead of being yourself, you're like, Gomez Adams or Morticia Adams, giving him a spiked baseball bat.
Yeah. So you got 24 enchantments in here. I was going to call this Xantcha Auras, but you called it Xantcha Hot Potatoes. That's cool.
Yeah.
You're passing stuff around. I like the Monarch mechanic. And, you do have Crystal Chimes.
Yeah, unfortunately, black doesn't have a lot of ways to interact with stuff in the graveyard unless it's a creature.
Yeah.
So Crystal Chimes is 3 for an artifact. You can pay 3, tap it, sack it, return all enchantments from your graveyard to your hand. There's a few other cards like this. There's Skull of Orm, which is just a very, very expensive version of this that you don't have to sacrifice. I think you can pay 5 and tap it to get 1 enchantment back to your hand.
Okay.
And there is one other effect that someone mentioned to me on Twitter, but I can't remember what it was. And I apparently forgot to put it in the deck. So if that was you on Twitter, tweet at me and say, "Hey, it was this card," because I did like what you suggested. I just I forgot about it. The other options are like what is it? Jahad on the One-Eyed and Shrouded Lore, I think, would be the only other 2 cards you could use to get them back. Or I guess Yawgmoth's Will. All right, or Magus of the Will. So, I guess there are a few options. I think that's everything I have to say about Xantcha. That's pretty much my deck. I have tweeted this using my hashtag DailyEDH. You can check me out at Grubfellow. I tweet every single day, and this deck list is one of my tweets. So you can let me know what you think about it there.
All right. Yeah, I like the approach. I think there's still some good stuff in here that could probably turn into something else.
I think you're not wrong. Did you have any specific ideas about what that might be?
I like Wormcoil Engine and the Gear Hulks.
Sure.
They don't really they don't really mesh with what Xantcha's doing. I think Carnage Gladiator does.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that should be in here. And maybe Walking Desecration. That's a zombie that's creatures of the creature type of your choice attack this turn if able. There's more stuff you could do along that lines, like I think Goblin Diplomats has a similar effect.
That's true. Oh, and Goblin Spymaster, where you give everybody tokens and they have to attack. The tokens your creatures have to attack.
Yeah.
That's probably.
And I was thinking Varchild would be in a Xantcha deck.
Oh, that's a very good call. What is Varchild? That's a new one out of this set, right?
Yes, but it's not in the same precon. And Varchild is, when I look it up,
I got it. Varchild, Betrayer of Keldor, 2 and a red for a 3/3 human knight. Whenever Varchild, Betrayer of Keldor deals combat damage to a player, that player creates that many 1/1 red survivor creature tokens. Survivors your opponents control can't block, and they can't attack you or a planeswalker you control, and when Varchild leaves the battlefield, gain control of all survivors. Yeah, I like it in theory. My only problem is she doesn't have any evasion, and she's not a great body for attacking.
Well, you do have those auras in there, so if you're not using them all on Xantcha, you could put some evasion on there.
It's just a couple of auras that would actually be good for Xantcha, though. Most of them are bad. Most of them are evil.
Bad.
Yeah, Varchild is something to think about, though.
Yeah. I think all your sorceries are kind of good stuff.
Sure. I mean, you do need card draw, though. You got Night's Whisper and Siphon Mind, Ashes to Ashes.
Yeah. And Blood Gift Demon and Phyrexian Arena. They're all good stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I actually included the large creatures for a reason. I guess maybe that reason was because they're good stuff. Usually when I build this kind of a deck, I hone in on the theme so completely that I end up, if that plan goes awry, I have nothing else. So I wanted to include some large beater creatures where I could kind of throw a wrench into the works for everybody else's combat, and then, later on I could drop a Wormcoil Engine or a Noxious Gear Hulk or, whatever, an Inferno Titan, and just kind of beat people up a little bit.
Okay.
I do like Karavek the Merciless in the deck, though. I think he's pretty on theme.
Yeah. You might put Vial Smasher in there, too.
Yep. Vial Smasher would also be good.
All right. I think Patrick might have his own take on it, and we can cover that in a later episode. But I think that's it for this one, right?
That is it.
Okie doke. Visit us at patreon.com/commandertime.
You can find me at Grubfellow,
at Detective Yarmits,
at Mr. Plorg.